Welcome back to Mind and Money. My name is Val Stratford and I am a financial planner.
And I'm Sherry, a financial coach. And today we are going to answer part 2 of the questions that help us know if we have ADHD. And of course, not an official diagnosis, but I find ADHDers are very thoughtful and tend to be very reliable at self-diagnosis, even if assholes on the internet don't think so.
This is coming from the book that my spouse gave me for Christmas, ADHD Toolkit for Women, 2 books in one. Sarah Davis and Linda Hall are the authors. The first question, or the first list of symptoms that we went through, is inattentiveness. This list is hyperactivity or impulsiveness. So we've got 7 symptoms here. We're going to ask ourselves, does this apply to us? Does this apply to you? Let's start with the first one. So have issues sitting still, often jiggles feet or hands, shifts in your seats, or fidgets.
I don't see that in myself as I'm doing this with my fingers. I don't see that a lot. I notice when I'm recording longer videos like this or when I'm in like Zoom client meetings that I'm a face toucher, but I don't see it necessarily as like the shaking the leg or like not being able to like physically sit still.
I can find it when my attention is like maxed out or I'm no longer engaged in conferences is my biggest one. I'll shake my leg or I feel like a bird in a cage. Like I probably look very normal on the outside, hopefully, but my inside world is like, I need to get out of this room and move. But again, that's really when my attention is not there and I'm not engaged in the topic. So never have I necessarily picked at anything or needed to have something to do with my hands. I'm a hand talker, but I don't know if that comes... I don't hardcore relate to this one.
I wonder if the challenging and sitting still at a conference also comes from, like, it's a challenge because you're not engaging in conversation. Like, you're just sitting there and listening.
And just, like, taking it.
Probably have, like, those urges to be like, ooh, I would like to add. I have, this is how it, like, helps me, being able to, or not being able to.
Like feedback.
Yeah.
Yes. Having issues sitting still sometimes, if there's something that I'm hyper focused on, then like going to sit and watch TV, my brain is like, but I want to finish that project. But less and less recently. I'm like, I'm okay with sitting still.
Yes, I'm not a physical doer of a lot of things. Like all of my doing is mental and more like sitting down. It's more about being in a comfortable position when I do it. I was wondering if these wouldn't apply to me as much because the hyperactivity is very much mental and like not physically noticeable.
So then have an ability to stay seated at work or during work.
Yes, because my boss lets me do whatever the fuck I want.
I would say, have an inability to stay seated at work. Do you have an inability to stay seated at work?
No, because I can control my environment for the most part. There's times when I'm doing things in my business that I need 2 screens, so then I'm limited to my office space. But most of the time when I'm in my office, I'm actually having client meetings. So then it's things that I love to do. Like I love those conversations. So then I don't feel the need to like get up. And I do have a standing desk and an under desk treadmill that I never use.
I was looking at that. I just did a call in Sherry's office and I was like, I should have set this up. This is great.
Yeah, it was a great idea in theory. So I need to be able to have quiet when I'm having client meetings.
Yeah, you can't be worrying and then talking and be like, oh, that's just my treadmill. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me.
And I find that when I'm trying to do those administrative tasks, like creating content and like the motion. So like if I was attending a virtual conference,
then
it might be something that would be helpful, but I think since I got the treadmill, I have more like limitations in my mind. Like if I stand the desk up, I need to be on my treadmill versus like it's okay to still just stand. And so I need to get back to that.
I would say I can kind of bring this back to like no right now because I'm moving around. Like I might be going in my car to go see a client. I might be going upstairs to grab lunch. I might be like doing things in between meetings. But when it comes to, I can relate back to my work at at the bank. As a teller in that role, you were always standing, which was good for me, but then always having to stay in like at like your post drove me nuts. I would fill my water up multiple times. I was always envious of the smokers because they would just like go for their break. And I'm like, can I just pretend to smoke to leave this place for a few minutes and move? And then in that role, being behind a desk in an office as the advisor at the bank, again, a lot of them were smokers. So I would like watch them. And I'm like, yeah, you would have to move. But if you weren't and you were just sitting there all day and then you got your hour break, I would typically take lunch. I would go home as well and just move my body. So
yeah.
Yes, that relates to me, but now that we have different flexibilities, no, not applicable. Okay.
And before self-employment, I never had a job sitting down.
Yeah, that's a good point.
First like job as a student was working in like the classic Canadian job, working at a Tim Hortons. Before that, I worked in a kitchen as a dishwasher. And then after that, it was factory life with a few stints that were more like predominantly like sitting at a workstation, but it was good to get out and like move and like be on the floor and talk to people during those positions too. So it was never a sit here for 8 hours. But part of the job that I took last year was more of that. And even though I worked from home and I could still work from the couch for a lot of things, it did feel more like there were more meetings and stuff like that. So more need to stay still and be normal.
Need to be on the go constantly.
No.
I think in my younger years, I had a lot of this. Like I worked and then I would have 2 jobs after school and my weekends were full. And now, whether it's just like maturing and also being more self-aware, I crave nothingness.
Yes.
I crave a window of nothing.
I say this to my husband a lot, like, is it your favorite part of the day too, to just like go to sleep and get in bed and be cozy? I really appreciate the simplicity of our lives where, in the evening, we just spend a lot of time chill, relaxing, watching TV. I don't feel the need to be on the go all the time. Actually, quite the opposite.
Our brains are on the go.
Yeah, so maybe that's why, because mentally we're very busy so that we don't feel the physical. And I think that was one of the questions when I was going through ADHD assessment, which I then later abandoned because my doctor is working with me on medication. But a lot of the questions were like, I think one of them was, do you often feel the need to go like you're driven by a motor? I'm like, no, can we just relax on the couch? But the brain feels like it's like never has an off switch, which I think I've never been in a neurotypical brain and I don't know what it's like, but I just know how quickly my husband can fall asleep at night because he doesn't have a million thoughts. He's not writing 10 social media captions in his head and starting 3 businesses.
This one is great. This symptom, talk too much.
Guilty.
Check.
Yeah, and for a long time, it was an area that I masked in a lot. And now that I've discovered that a lot of my circle also has ADHD, kind of like that, I don't know, just taking that mask off and letting the conversations be very chaotic. Like, I think if somebody spent time with you and I talking that was neurotypical, or like a couple of my friends that have ADHD, I think it could be very overwhelming and that, oh, wait, I shouldn't interrupt because that's not socially acceptable. But a conversation goes on 8 tangents and it's fucking amazing and wonderful.
Yes. So yes.
Check it out.
And leaning into it, knowing that like we don't need to shrink ourselves. There's going to be times when it's going to be hard to keep our mouth shut, but that's going to be applicable to the situation. But there's going to be times where it's like, it's okay where this conversation goes. And I have that with clients too, like in gathering our information and getting to know each other. It's not a black and white process and it never is. And I never fit that mold of like, this is the script I'm going to read. It's like, no, it's very organic and flowy. Are you unable to do quiet activities?
I read, but I either read in short chunks or read a whole book in a weekend because it's like, I think it's that hyper focus, I guess. But so I read and I
don't ever feel like my brain is quiet. So I never feel like I'm doing something quietly.
Yeah, I feel like when I'm reading, I often have to like reread things
or unless it's read it out loud.
Yeah, unless it's a book that I really am really into and it's not like 2 different, like it's
fiction.
Like, is it a book for informational purposes? Mm-hmm. And then I'm like highlighting, like thinking about all the things. But if it's just,
like fiction, like a romantic book.
Yeah.
I'm just following the story. I don't need to typically reread it because I'm like, I can visualize it too. But when it's throwing facts at me, I'm like, ooh. I can't see it as well, but I also do best when I'm moving and listening to an audiobook. So if I'm on a walk listening to an audiobook, it's retaining. So unable to do quiet activities, not necessarily. Meditation's a challenge, but I think that's
so
a practice.
Maybe it's a yes, because I don't, when people ask, or I see like a video on social media saying, oh, what do you like to do for fun? I don't know. Make spreadsheets and talk to other ADHD entrepreneurs. Because that is...
But we do love what we do.
That's so enjoyable for me. Like, I can have coffee with somebody and you blink and it's 2 or 3 hours later and it's like, oh shit, I have things I need to do today.
Yes. So that one's probably a yes for us. You cannot seem to wait for someone to finish asking a question before they are finishing their sentences or answering. You cannot wait to speak.
Yes, 100%. Because if they're a slow talker, I touched on this last time, my husband, bless his heart, is a slow talker sometimes. And it can be frustrating, but also the aspect of, oh, I have something that I can contribute to this conversation that I think would be enjoyable to the other person or beneficial. I have advice that I want to give to them, sometimes whether they want it or not. But it's like, if I try and be quiet and hold on to it, I worry that it's just going to
lose it,
poof, and disappear from my mind. And then I'll stew about what was that thing that I wanted to share with them. And now I can't because I forgot about it.
But then I also worry about coming across as rude, and I don't want to come across as rude, which brings us to the next one, which is interrupts other conversation, games, activities, etc. without being asked to join, or you may take over an activity completely to avoid having to give instructions or explain yourself.
That's a really long question.
Yeah, that is. I definitely find myself interrupting. That comes to the you cannot wait to speak, because I'm like, this is really important. I should share this and I might lose it. So I need to say it now.
And I do find myself taking over things a lot. Like I said to Val earlier today, I'm like, if I'm ever bulldozing with anything, that she needs to let me know, because I'm aware of it, but I can't help it. But what was the thing about the games?
Interrupts others' conversations, games, or activities without being asked to join. I would say I'm pretty good at waiting for the invitation, unless it's in like a networking sense and you kind of have to join. I don't think that one's
kind of not registering in my brain. When it comes to games and rules and new games, I must play the game to learn the rules. You can't tell me the rules and then expect me to remember them, because
learn by doing. If you have 5 or more check marks above, you can take the list and show it to your medical professional to have an evaluation. This test will include filling out several forms, a hearing and vision screening. There are no blood or other labs that will diagnose this disorder. While some evidence points to genetics that contribute to having ADHD, the science behind what causes it is not definitive.
So just quick side note. So we are Canadian and we are in Ontario. And I did mention earlier that I went to my doctor and she's helping me work through meds, which is amazing, because I don't need an official diagnosis, because I don't need any type of work accommodations. But I did try a paid service that is in Ontario. It's available in a handful of provinces, Ontario being one of them, where nurse practitioners are able to diagnose and help you medicate if you're diagnosed. So the first meeting, there was a butt ton of forms to fill out virtually. So I booked the appointment. I got the email with all the forms and I filled all of those out. And then I think it was a half an hour meeting. I met with the nurse practitioner and we were talking through a lot of things. And a lot of the questions, you're filling out the questions virtually and there's a yes or no, like, do you do this or do you not? And as you can see from the questions and the answers, that in this episode and the last one is yes, but, or no, but. So we have things in place to mitigate that as a concern, because we've had to figure out how to life and have all these intricate systems in place. Yeah, so it was hard for that aspect, but also because so much ADHD is diagnosed in young boys, because they present with more of the physical. A lot of the questions were before the age of 12, did you?
Yes.
And my answer to a lot of those was, I don't know, because
I don't know. And if I did, I probably masked it.
Because, I have very few memories of my childhood, and for whatever reason, I don't remember that period of time. So it's hard for me to say, yes, I did this before 12. And I didn't book the second appointment with the nurse practitioner because I connected with this new primary care physician, new family doctor, and she's helping me. But also their process it's not a very ADHD friendly process. We had the one meeting and she was very strongly indicating that there probably wouldn't be an official diagnosis because of the not remembering before the age of 12. But also they sent one email with a reminder to book the next session. And I actually deleted it. Oh, they'll send another one. Like their ADHD,
Yes.
That's what they do. They're going to send another one. And I'm meeting with my family doctor soon. And if that doesn't go the way that it did go, then I would have explored booking it, but never for a second email. So it's interesting that they don't have more follow-ups for people
system.
As a reminder to book the second session. So it was a paid service. So I know that's not accessible to everybody because I know not everybody has a family doctor like I do.
Right. Yes. And I was lucky that I've recently switched family doctors, which is a very privileged thing to be able to do. So looking at going down that route. So we'll learn through that because I don't think he's as flexible as your doctors. That's going to be my word, or like open to being like, well, let's try this. He's like, okay, here's this 16-page questionnaire, which you've already gone through with the paid program. And then that to me was just like, I'll do that one day. So
and there can be barriers. Like lots of family physicians either downplay it or are more comfortable with the young boys that are showing with like traditional ADHD symptoms. So I am very grateful that my doctor was willing to have that conversation and work with me through medication and opened up that window to be able to allow me to find the medication and the dose for that medication that works. So I think I might be there. I think that I've tried two and they are helping, but I just think my expectation for how they would help was maybe too high. But
I think that social media too has created an influx. So then I think doctors are discounting it because they're like, well, all these people think they have it, probably too. So
we've just been masking for decades of our life. And it's more common now that later in life women are getting diagnosed because a lot of it comes through social media and then self-awareness and
exposure,
all of those things.
Comfort with it.
Yeah.
So that's our questionnaire. Take it yourselves.
And
go through them. See what came up for you.
Let us know what your thoughts are. Did you resonate more with the last episode on the inattentiveness or the hyperactivity part of it that we talked about today? So I definitely myself resonated more, and I think we both did, with the first inattentiveness part because it's very like brain heavy and not as much like physically represented or like having that challenge to sit still, because I think that's how it presents in women more, which has caused later diagnosis and later medication and understanding of why we do the things the way we do and why we've had some of the challenges that we've had throughout our lives.
Yeah. That's a wrap. Thank you for listening.
And we will see you next time.